next speaker, Rabbi Hazdan, is the Dean of the Torah Academy and the Rabbi at Great Park Synagogue. Rabbi David Hazdan has initiated outreach projects that serve destitute South Africans and also launched the annual Cycle Live, the 700-kilometer cycling ride from Johannesburg to Cape Town to promote tolerance and respect between students of different religions, cultures, and backgrounds from Soweto to Israel. Please welcome Rabbi David Hazdan.
A couple of decades ago, I went to hike the Grand Canyon. I was driving from Flagstaff to the Hoover Dam, and the terrain was flat. It was desert. There were highways through the sand. It seemed the most perfect situation to drive in. And on the side of the roads, I kept seeing the signs. Headlights on, dangerous highway. Eventually, we came to the Hoover Dam. I stopped a police officer, and I asked him, what's this dangerous highway? How could this be a dangerous highway? You could land an airplane on these highways. And he said, young man, which I was at the time, on this highway, people fall asleep at the wheel. And I thanked him for that insight into the roundabouts, the ups and downs, and all of the challenges that we go through in life. They are meant to awaken something in us, to dream, to think differently, and not, God forbid, to fall asleep at the wheel. I so thank Brenda and all the organizers for this event for giving me this opportunity. She asked me if there was an epiphany in my life that brought me to want to get involved with communal leadership, and that's been on my mind for the last few weeks. I've been thinking about this a lot, and there isn't. What really motivated my journey into communal responsibility was a parent, a role model. And very briefly, my father was born in the city of Gomel in Ukraine, much in the news today. He's lost his father when he's 3. He was raised by an uncle who was sent to Siberia because he taught Judaism. My father, at the age of 17 in 1924, realized the only place that he could try and act as a Jew was to leave the environment then. He lost his whole family there in Russia, moved through Poland, eventually to Latvia. Just before the war, he was given a job in Sweden, and so he survived the war. But his entire family in Libava were taken out on the 15th of December, 1941. The entire family, and were shot. He was left with one person in his entire life, his then wife. She needed a dry and warm climate. He therefore moved from Sweden, where he was in the hub of post-war activity in trying to save as many people as he could. And he landed up in the metropolis city of Warmbads, where I was born, known as Bella Bella. His wife passed away 6 months later, and a year later he met my mother, and he started over. And he raised us as children in a family that was so grateful. We were never victims. He never spoke about victimhood. He never spoke about what he had been through in the sense of the tragedy as much as he spoke about the need to work, to impact, to make a difference. Not fair was never part of our vocabulary. It always was, what can we do? And as a result of that, my siblings, myself, all went into teaching. All my children are involved in teaching. And I'm so proud that that is how they have decided to live their lives. And it is the impact of a mentor, somebody who was my role model. And our challenge is to be the role models to the people who are looking at us and other people in leadership so that they can have positive experiences. And I want to share a few thoughts about another role model who lived a little bit before that, and that is my mentor Moses, who we call in our Jewish teachings Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher Moses, although he lived thousands of years ago. He impacts on our life every single day. And I try to find a few specific core elements of leadership that he represents then and today and tomorrow. The first event of his life that became part of his journey of leadership was that he was in the palace of Pharaoh. Vayigdal ha'ish, and he grew up. Vayetzei lechav, and he went out to his brothers. We are taught that that is not just a sequential approach to understanding Moses' journey that was definitive. When did he grow up? When did he emerge? when he left the palace and he went out to see what was happening with his brethren. Because as long as he was isolated in some ivory tower, unaware of the suffering of others, he was still a child. We grow up when we leave our comfort zones to recognize the needs of others. Vayifen ko vako, and he looked this way and that way. Vayar ki ein ish, there was no man. And he saw one person trying to kill another, and he intervenes. Our sages tell us that he looked this way and that way. He saw no man, because often in life we look around and nobody is standing up for the underdog. There is no person, there is no adult, there is no responsible person who cares enough. And what do we do then? We need to rise to the occasion and be inspired people, notwithstanding that we are surrounded by mediocrity or people who have fallen asleep at the wheel. Moses was a shepherd, and the underlying element of leadership as we see it in his life was not political acumen, was not brilliance in how to respond to crises. He was a shepherd. He cared for every one of his flock. That is the foundation of leadership. Acumen can be acquired as we go through life. But the underlying feature of leadership has to be a shepherd, as King David was and so many other great leaders. And when he stood at the burning bush and God said to him, "You are the leader and you will take out this people," his response was, "Mi anochi, who am I? I have a speech impediment. I'm not the right person. Try somebody who's better than me." Because leadership and great leadership is born not when people think that they are the greatest and that they have every talent and ability to impact on the world. When we recognize our flaws and we are aware of our deficiencies and nevertheless we respond to the call of the hour, leaders should not be the people who advertise themselves on the polls as being the greatest gift to humankind and the people able to transform the world. It is maybe the shy individual who is looking past their deficiencies that might be the greatest next leader. And then Jethro arrives and he says, you have to delegate. You cannot be a leader that's going to do it all yourself. And you have to find people who are honest, sonei vatsa, who hate illicit gain. My father used to say, how do you find somebody who hates money? He said, for money you can get anything, even somebody who hates. So there he was, delegating, ensuring that everybody would be in the position that would be honest and appropriate. And then the golden calf, and God says, I've given up on this people. And we will build a new people from you, Moses. We need a brand new beginning. And Moses turns to God, which I believe to be his quintessential moment of greatness as a leader. Not when he stood on Sinai, and not when he split the seas, but when he said to God, God, wipe me out of your book if you refuse to forgive my people. I am my people. I'm for my people. This is not about me. I'm ready to give up everything and to be taken out of your document, your holy Torah, which I've given my life for. Remove me if you do not forgive my people. I am my people. I am for my people. That is what defines my very existence. And then came the sanctuary, and he had the most successful monetary drive, financial drive, to have all the requirements for the temple. Probably the only one in history where they actually turned to the people and said, enough, don't give 1 cent more, we have everything that we need. But immediately after that, vast sections, chapters of our holy Bible and Torah are dedicated to an accounting. Where was it spent? How was it gained? Where was it utilized? Every single cent was accounted for. Because Moses, notwithstanding his stature and his spiritual accomplishments, stood accountable, responsible, and giving over that account to the people around him. And then came the question of succession. And when there was a need for a new leader because his hope of reaching the promised land was not to be, his main request was that my people will not be katsoin asher ein lahem ra'eh, they should not be like a sheep, like a flock without a shepherd. It wasn't his son, it wasn't his cousin, it wasn't jobs for pals. Moses handed over to the best person who was able to lead for the next generation. And when he addressed that next generation, which is the entire book of Deuteronomy, it's interesting, we have 4 books and then a 5th book. The 5th book repeats a lot of the things that have been said before, but this time he's talking to a different generation. The first 4 books were about those who had suffered in Egypt. the history, the people who came from suffering. Now there was a new generation. They were destined to find the promised land. This was a generation of the future. And Moses knows how to address them. He knows that they need a different language. They need a new dream. They can't just be defined by the suffering of the past. They have to be defined by the opportunities of the future. One of my favorite books is The Little Prince, and Antoine de Saint-Exupéry says that if we want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood, to assign tasks. Teach them to dream of the open sea. Let us not fall asleep at the wheel. Let us dream about a better future. Thank you.